Welcome to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. As we record this in February, it's an appropriate time to note the failure rate for the New Year's resolution is about 80%, maybe more by now. But it doesn't have to be that way. Our guest today served as executive human resource professional for Fortune 500 corporations, including Boeing, Caterpillar, Marriott, Dr. Pepper, and Sara Lee. Often, she was the only African American in the room. Her book, The Secret to Getting Unstuck, subtitled A Guide to Forming 5 Habits Will Transform Your Life and Make You Unrecognizable, is full of practical, helpful advice. We're very pleased to welcome Erika Jon.
Thank you.
You-
Thank you so much.
I have to ask, it just occurred to me, you talked about being the only African American in those boardrooms. Do you ever have to fight off the imposter syndrome feelings?
For a long time, I really didn't know what the imposter syndrome is. I didn't get it.
Ah,
And so if I was always feeling like everyone else knew better than me, they
ah,
know the answers, I don't, which clearly just was me not telling myself the truth. So if that falls under the imposter syndrome, then I would say, then yes, that's what that was. I really felt like that came from the whole children are meant to be seen and not heard,
oh
that
yeah,
old school thing. And I felt like I was very obedient for the most part as a child. And I had this revelation, if be quiet, adults are speaking, so if you were always kind of told those things, whether it was expressed or implied, when do you get your voice?
mm,
And so it was, in my late 20s, early 30s, while I was in these boardrooms, that I realized I can make a contribution here and I'm not. What's
yeah.
getting in the way? What's holding me back? And it just led to some self-exploration, finding my voice, at one point believing no one really wants to hear what I have to say, to fast forward, I've written my first book.
Fantastic. So, how long did it take you to put this together?
The book, The Secret to Getting Unstuck, A Guide to Forming 5 Habits That Will Transform Your Life and Make You Unrecognizable, I say is my second baby. And I want to say that this book has been birthing in me for many, many years.
Mhm.
And in the book, I talk a lot about a really, just a really challenging time in my life where I felt like I had checked all the boxes, of what I was raised to believe, go to school,
Yeah.
graduate, get the job, get married, buy a house, have a child. And some of those things, the order mattered, right?
Yes.
And uh, and so I felt like I had checked all the boxes and done all of those things. And so here I was at this amazing job, very well-known brand, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a voice, and I ended up having to walk away from the job. And I went through like a major depression. Um, I the only thing that really got me out of the bed in the mornings was that I had to take care of my son and, get him off to college. Um, and so I just went through a lot where I had been accustomed to having the keys to the building. My career had always been in HR. Executive leaders would come to me for advice. To I couldn't pay anyone to hire me. Hindsight, I realized I had to go through all of that um, to reclaim my identity. So it was almost like the foundation of who I thought I was had to completely crumble, and it did. For
Wow.
me to rebuild and really align with who I really am and what I'm really capable of. So ultimately, I probably a year or so into that, I ended up finding a job at a call center, and I was making 52 cents 52 cents a call, not an hour.
Right.
And whereas I had been accustomed to making upwards of, 6 figures, here I was making 52 cents a call, having to sign a piece of paper when I needed to go to the bathroom. I had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, my first coaching certification, and I talk about being stuck.
Yeah.
And hmm I'm
And I
sorry.
just I was going to say that you didn't stay there though. That's the key to this.
No, I didn't stay. So when you asked the question, what made me write this book or how long did it take me? I think it really started there. Um, because a lot of the things that I talk about, the tools, the techniques that I talk about in the book are things that I actually use to get me from that stuck, dark, horrible place.
Yeah. I see that people call you the people whisperer. I love that. Is that because you're both gentle and effective?
So that name was coined at one of my HR jobs. And, I just had a completely different approach to how I handle HR matters. And it really helped having the coaching background and the coaching certifications. And what I found is when people are having performance behavior issues, typically it's performance behavior and attendance where you'll see those issues. When I would talk to employees and take on more of that coaching to pull out of them what's really going on, you would find that they were stuck in some area of their life, whether it was some type of negative belief or programming, mental programming of how they see the world or whatever the case may be. So beneath the layer of the performance or behavior issue was something that needed some attention, some healing. And often I could help them with that. And so people, it was just funny. It's bringing back a lot of memories. I'm sorry. So I would take the employee into the room to have the conversation or the leader, and they would come out like in tears. And the tears were really symbolic of a release of just stored baggage and pain that they've held on to. And so it was from that the name people whisperer was
Yeah.
arrived.
There are a lot of self-help books out there, and there's a lot of them have the word stuck or unstuck in the title. The thing I found most interesting about this one is the absolute clarity with which you write, you getting the right level where you're accessible to the layperson like myself, and yet to reward the more experienced reader by having all the citations for the studies. Did you have to do several revisions to find that balance, or did it just flow for you?
Well, it was a lot of research. It
Yeah.
was hours and hours of research. And there are websites that I visited that helps with citing it and then how to properly cite that information.
Oh,
So it
yes.
it took quite a while to find all of that material. Yes.
I mean, and let's talk a little bit about the coaching aspect of it. It's life coaching is a fairly recent development as far as
Mm.
the mass media is concerned, and I'm wondering if you aren't in part a bit of a mental practitioner as well,
What are you, a middle
a
practitioner?
mental health practitioner as well, because
Oh,
I see a lot of overlap between psychology, psychiatry, all of this.
it is a slippery slope in that sometimes there is um, a bit of overlay. For me, because I've seen a therapist before,
Mhm.
and I can only speak to my experience. When I went, and it was many years ago, long before I ever thought about becoming a coach, um, I I was saying, here's what's going on with me, blah blah blah. And it was almost like poor you. And so
Mm.
I left feeling like a victim. I left feeling worse um, than when I went in there. And I see coaching, at least again from my perspective and how I do it. Um, it's about getting results. It's about moving forward. It's about what's getting in the way. Let's blow that out of the way so there's nothing stopping you, and let's get a plan to get you going. And sometimes we peel back the layers and rip out the root of, what's really getting in the way. And so to me, it coaching feels much more empowering
Mm.
than the experience that I had with therapy.
That's fascinating to hear that. One of the things you talk about is people's comfort zones. They're
Mhm.
afraid to move out, afraid to fail. And one of the things we keep hearing over and over again is you have to be comfortable with failure because that's where growth comes in.
Absolutely. And here's my thing. I want to find a really cool way to say this. The comfort zone is not always comfortable.
Mm.
It's just it's just you've been there for so long, it's known, right? But it's not always, it's never comfortable because you're not happy there.
Yeah.
And I see it in layers. So if this is the layer for the comfort zone, the next layer is the unknown. And then the next layer is that new level that you're trying to reach. Well, there's no way to get to that new level that you're trying to reach or that desired outcome without going into the unknown. And people will feel that unknown, get afraid, and go back to the comfort zone, which is not comfortable, which they forgot they were trying to get out of it in the first place, right?
In fact, I think instead of being comfortable, you could call it the familiar zone.
The
That's what you're
familiar
familiar
zone.
with. You're used to that,
That's right.
but you're uncomfortable there. So
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That is absolutely right.
I just have to ask this. Something tells me as part of your skill set, you might be really good at reading body language. Is that true?
Sometimes, very interesting that you would say that. I think over the years with my coaching, I've gotten a bit more intuitive. And so things kind of come to me just from a deeper level. And I can tell by your facial expression, the tone in your voice, what you're saying, what you're not saying. And I can pick up on those things and integrate those things into the coaching. So very, very observant of you.
Well, I try, I have to say. Um, at one point, you talk about the law of attraction, saying what we focus on, the most we attract in our life. I had a question about that. Um, one of the things that happens if you get married and you become expecting a kid, and all of a sudden, everywhere you look, you see nothing but babies or baby clothes or baby whatever.
Yes.
So is this more of that, or is this kind of a magical thinking that if I concentrate on this, it will force the universe to bring it to me?
Well, there's nothing magical about it. It takes work,
Mhm.
and it really takes a willingness to work and a faith to know that if you do the work, you will get to where you want to be.
Mhm.
Um, yes. So we talk about, for instance, we talk about in the book habits, right? We talk about the mechanics of habits and how they work and how they can keep us stuck. And I want to make sure I answer your question. You talked about the law of attraction.
Yes.
I do believe that, and not only is it a universal law, it's not something that is woo-woo, like it is a universal law. It's biblical. It's just said in different words. So whatever you focus on the most, you get more of. There's a scripture that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. You know, these things are saying the same thing. It's about your mindset. So, where are you putting your mindset? What are you focusing on? Because that's what's going to continue to show up in your life, which ties in nicely to the one of the first chapters in the book that talks about habits.
Mhm.
You know, what are you focusing on? Because everything starts with your thinking, and then you do these things over and over again. Well, what's a habit? It's something that you do that you're unconscious about. You don't even think about it, you just do it. And so you can see how if it's a negative habit, how that alone can keep you stuck. You've heard the sayings, habits are hard to break.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, because it's unconscious. You're not even thinking about it. So you have to have some level of awareness. And if you understood the mechanics of how habits are formed, how to break a habit, and the knowing that I can't just break a habit, I have to replace one. We
Yes.
talk about that in the book, right?
Yeah.
So because and then I was thinking it is called a guide to forming 5 habits that will transform your life. So here's this guide. So let me first help you to understand how habits work, how you create them. And then the first habit is identifying and obliterating negative beliefs. There's a quote by Lao Tzu. I'm afraid I may mess it up, but but it starts out saying, "Watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your behavior or your actions. Watch your actions, for they become I, your destiny." Right. So I kind of missed some lines in there, but if you think about it, everything starts with your thoughts. So what are these thoughts that I'm having? And just like the habits, they can be so subconscious that you don't even realize it. I had a client tell me, I after having all these conversations, I realized I just don't believe that I can remain consistent. And here we are working on a plan for her to start her business. Well, if you have a belief that you're not going to be consistent, then I don't we can have the best strategy, the best plan, and you're not going to follow through because you're never going to act out of alignment with your thinking. Because again, watch your thoughts, for they become your behaviors, your actions, your destiny. Um, so once we can identify what those negative thoughts are, and I walk you through a very powerful process for identifying them and obliterating them, then there's forgiveness. And I've gotten feedback. I've been using my uncle. He said, "Hey, I love your book. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. I teach on it. And the one thing people struggle with is forgiveness."
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And he said, they are just not hearing it. They're just not having it. And I said, well, forgiveness is not for the other person. It really is for you to let go of whatever that baggage is that you're holding on to. And we don't even realize on a physical, emotional level the negative impact or the toll that it takes on us carrying it from year to year to year to year. So I walk you through a very powerful process for releasing that forgiveness. So if you can think about, I'm stuck in a negative habit. I have these negative beliefs that are keeping me stuck, and I'm holding on to all of this baggage from not forgiving and not letting go. And that's forgiveness for self, it's forgiveness for others. Then you can see how you can be stuck and not even realize it.
Oh, very easily. You talk about recognizing your authentic self, and I think many of us operate on other people's expectations rather than being ourselves. That's a fascinating concept. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And that's a part of, I think, what happened to me in that the story that I was telling you about when I went through that deep
Mm.
depression. You as a kid, you're getting your identity from what you learn from other people, from your teachers, from your parents, from other family members, but it's not necessarily who you are at your core. And so really aligning and identifying with who am I really? And what's really important to me, and what do I want in my life, not what I've been told or expected, right, to
Yeah.
be or do or have. So yeah.
Um, One of the things you talk about is curating your social media feeds to include the accounts that align with who you are, who you want to be, not what you have been. And I'm wondering if it might be necessary to actually eliminate some of that social media it's a huge time sink. And I know it's probably not advice anybody would take, but it's just occurs to me that there are other things you could be doing. But if you're involved in social media, you're going to have to do that. So,
I'm in an interesting position now where being an author, having um, produced a book, and then I have some other books that I want to share with you in just a second. Uh, I'm being told you need a social media presence, to really market your book, and I'm like, oh God, no. Um, and and I and it can be very addictive, right? It can be very addictive to get on there and scroll and scroll and scroll. And I'm definitely guilty of looking at the funny videos that's on Instagram or TikTok. But you really have to be careful because people post on their best moments, and I know for me, I deliberately use my Facebook, and I've been told only old people use Facebook now. I don't, they couldn't possibly be talking about me, but I I use Facebook, and I use it as a memory saver, right? So if I'm ever down, then I go and I look back at all the posts that I put on there that were meaningful to me, fun moments, impactful things that I want to remember, and it always lifts my spirits. So anything on there is going to be positive and me in a good place. I don't post me in a negative place. And so if there's someone experiencing a negative thing or a negative emotion, and then they're looking at you or they're looking at everybody and it's all this good stuff, it can make you feel like there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Everybody else is happy, everyone else is thriving. What's wrong with me? And so that could have a really negative impact. And I would say limit yourself um, to the amount of social media that you're consuming, if that is the case, because even though social media is telling a story, it's not telling the whole story. So if you look at mine, you would think, oh my God, look at her, she's here, she's doing that. But you don't see those moments where I'm struggling, emotionally to get it together, or where I'm procrastinating or feeling afraid. I think everyone has those emotions. It's just not always displayed. So if anyone is hearing this, don't allow that to make you feel bad about yourself.
Excellent, excellent advice. And another thing you talked about is patience. We are inclined to be, instant gratification takes too long for some people. You know, and, and we need to approach change with patience. And I think that's one of the points that you make that's
Ooh.
very valuable to people. You can't do it overnight, but you can start.
Mm-mm. Yes. And I used to get frustrated when I hear this. Well, you didn't gain the weight overnight, or you didn't, this issue didn't occur overnight. So it's unrealistic to believe that it's going to go away overnight. And that goes back. And the reason why it takes so long is because there's this thing called momentum.
Hmm.
So if you've been doing something and being a certain way for a long time or years, well, you can imagine you've built up all of this momentum. If you can imagine those hills in San Francisco,
Yes.
that are just ridiculous, like straight down, slopes almost. And if you're about midway down that hill, there's no stopping you. You're going down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the momentum is a power, it's a force. And I use an example like, imagine a train coming at you 100 miles per hour. And that train is representative of your life going in a certain direction, or a habit or something that you're doing that you want to change. And you say, I want to change it, stop. I want to change my eating habits. I want to lose weight, stop, and turn around and go the other way. Well, the train can try to stop, and you can hear the squeaking of the brakes. It can try to stop, but the momentum is going to run you over every time. So it's going to take time you can't just stop it, but what you can do is slow it down.
Mhm.
Slow it down. And so whenever those things pop up, you slow the momentum down, and then you pivot and you do something different. I have these stages. I call it the first law of learning is recognition. So becoming aware that you're doing that thing, that you are in acting out in that habit, right? Because habits are unconscious. So becoming aware. So first law of learning, recognition. And so once you recognize, oh, I'm doing that thing, I'm eating and I'm not,
Mhm.
um, I'm sad. Well, then you got to interrupt the pattern.
Yeah.
So what do you do to interrupt that pattern to stop yourself? You can turn on some music and dance. You can journal, just anything to stop you, to interrupt that pattern. Then the second law of learning is repetition. Now it's your turn to repeatedly respond differently. And this is equivalent to slowing that train down. Repetition. And if you think about it, that's how you got the habit in the first place, by
Exactly.
repeatedly doing that thing over and over again until you just didn't even think about it. Now you're creating a new habit in the direction in which you want it to go. And then the final step is positive reinforcement, patting yourself on the back, giving yourself credit for doing a great job at stopping yourself. And this may take you a month. I mean, it may take you weeks and weeks, but if you keep doing this, I promise you, you will create a new habit and replace the old one.
Well, you are actually you're changing direction is what you're doing. You're slowing and steering at the same time,
Yeah,
I think.
I
Um,
think so.
yeah. Um, I think one of the things you write is I have to quote something, but I take lots of notes. You've had like 12 pages of notes, single spaced. I mean, this is what I call a book that is dense in the best possible sense of the word, and meaning there's a lot of meat on the bone here. Well worth it for you. And one of the things that you will say is what sets me apart is my genuine commitment to your growth and transformation. I will artfully pose thought-provoking questions that challenge your perspective, actively listen to responses, and guide you in reframing limiting beliefs that may be holding you back.
Mhm.
That's almost a perfect capsule summary of what you do, and apparently you're doing it quite well and getting a lot of good response from that.
Thank you. Thank you. I do like to I do like to challenge your thinking, right? Because it
Mhm.
goes back to those negative beliefs. If we never act out of alignment with our beliefs, then I'm going to ask you questions to challenge that thinking. Because what has happened is you just never challenged the thought. You just believed it and rolled with it.
Mhm.
Um, and so challenging that thinking, it makes you go, well, wait a minute. I didn't think about that. Maybe that's not true. In coaching sessions, I'll ask questions. Well, tell me more about that. Well, is that really true? Well, what about this? Well, and then the client will go, well, I don't know. I just thought this, you know. And what that's saying is I never thought past the surface to really dig in and challenge the validity of it. I just believed it. And that's why people can believe things so dearly and it becomes their reality, even if it's not the truth.
Yeah, yeah. They are creating their own reality. And as somebody has said, the universe is going to do what it does. What you can change is how you feel and react to that.
That's it. I
Yeah.
call it controlling the controllables.
Yes.
I can't control everything that happens, but I can control how I respond to it. Absolutely.
Yeah. You I'm curious, are you planning to expand and do a Tony Robbins and train other people to do what you do?
No. And really, um, I wish I had caught you and we really shouldn't promote, that we work for him.
Ah,
So as far as coaching, not, I'm not really, who knows what the future holds? I won't even say what I won't do because who knows? One of
mhm.
the things that I am thinking about doing is taking my content and turning it into an online course.
Mm,
Now, maybe that's a few months out. I got a lot going on. I think I have about 4 jobs now. So I have a lot going on, but that is in the future. But one of the things that I am working on right now is a meditation to accompany the book, The Secret to Getting Unstuck, a guide to transforming 5 habits that will transform your life and make you unrecognizable. If I ever write another book after these,
shorter
the
title.
title will be short. For sure. It's such a mouthful.
Yeah.
But the meditation, I fingers crossed will be out by March 15th on Audible. And it's called The Secret to Getting Unstuck Meditation, a guide to relaxation, clarity, and freedom. And it's designed to accompany the book. And here's kind of my thought process. The original book, The Secret to Getting Unstuck, goes through those 5 habits, with identifying, obliterating the negative beliefs, uh, forgiveness, gratization, which is visualization and gratification, getting a new identity, planning and executing. And then there's this bonus habit of meditation. Well, this is the meditation, and all of the powerful processes that we talk about in the book, the meditation will walk you through those things.
Nice.
I feel like when we read a book, unlike you, you're so good at reading a book, dissecting it. But a lot of times we read it, we hear it, we put the book down, and then we forget about it.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, you got to do the work. And so the meditation is the work. The meditation is walking you through all of these things. And I created a beautiful journal that if you get the journal, you get the meditation, and then you can keep all of your notes in this beautiful journal. So I'm very excited about that as well. The journal is out. I'm really wanting that meditation to hurry up and get out. The journal is called The Secret to Getting Unstuck Journal, a guide to transformation through journaling. And then I have another book to just fall into the family. And you can see the pictures here.
Mm-hmm.
The Secret to Getting Unstuck, Declarations of Truth, affirmations that will transform your life and make you unrecognizable. And I feel like this one is important because, you know, studies say we have 60 to 75,000 thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of those thoughts are negative, and of those thoughts, they're the same negative thoughts over and over again, which again keep you stuck because we never act out of alignment with our thoughts. And then it becomes a habit, something we do unconscious. So I want to create some new thoughts and get beyond affirmations. I even say in the book, the affirmations are OGs of positive thinking. So they're the OG. What's next? What's that next level? So declaring this to be your truth, has a bit more umph to it. This is my truth. And so it's a book full of affirmations around those 5 habits. And it's just going to be simply powerful. And if you can imagine dissecting these declarations of truth and repeating them over and over and over again, it was really designed to be an audible just to listen to. And I decided to go ahead and publish it in book form as well, because maybe some people would just like to read them. So I'm very excited about these projects.
No, it sounds fascinating. And I think you're onto something here because we know that there are people who have different styles of learning. And by providing alternatives like the Audible, you are helping a different group of people at the same time who can access that so well.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that I was going to mention earlier and forgot and skipped past it. I love people who invent new words for me. And and you did one in this book.
I'm very excited. The new word, I will know that I have made it if this word ends up in the dictionary.
Oh yeah.
But gratization is visualization and gratitude combined. And so once we have unloaded all of this baggage, this negativity with the negative beliefs, with the lack of forgiveness, now it's time to create a new vision for our life. And when you accompany that with gratitude brings in and it invites positivity. It makes you feel good. It's healthy. Whatever you focus on the most, you get more of, right? Back to the law of attraction. So if I'm focusing on the things that I'm grateful for, the things that I want to invite into my life, then I get more of that. So when you combine visualizing the possibilities for your life and being grateful for it, that's gratization. And that is just a powerful 1-2 punch. So thank you for acknowledging that. I'm a fan of that word.
I can see that that's going to, it'll catch on. It really will.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope um, declarations of truth and gratization take off.
I hope so too. Is there anything we have not touched on? You want to make sure that our listeners get a chance to hear from you.
Yes. Um, I'd like to offer your audience the top five people, or the first five, not top five, the first five people who reach out to me and mention your show. I want to gift them an personally autographed book of The Secret to Getting Unstuck. And I would like to gift them 3 free Get Unstuck coaching sessions. So
Wow.
my email address is Erika, Erika, at erika-jon.com. I do have a website. It is Erika-Jon at erikajon.com. Uh-oh, wait, www.erika-jon.com. There we go.
And John is Jon. We should
And
tell
John
people.
is Jon. And
Yeah.
it's so funny. My middle name is John. So Erika Jon is my pen name.
Uh,
And my middle name all my life has been John. And I absolutely hated it because I felt like I would joke, my dad's name is John
yeah.
and my son's name is Jonathan. And
Oh
I would
dear.
joke and say, my dad always wanted a son. And since he couldn't have one, he named, my middle name John.
Uh,
Turns out my mom said it's German. And anyway, long story. But it's Erika Jon, Jon. Yes.
okay. Want to make sure because we wouldn't want people going, why am I not getting through?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much. You have been so generous with your time today. We really appreciate your sharing, and we just hope a lot of folks are going to take advantage of your wonderful offer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for making this so easy and just winding me up and letting me go.
That's what the professionals do. That's all you have to do. Our guest today, Erika Jon. The book is The Secret to Getting Unstuck, subtitled A Guide to Forming 5 Habits That Will Transform Your Life and Make You Unrecognizable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.